Femicide in Fonicala. 20-year-old woman was killed yesterday. Husband is detained. Tragedy at Tbilisi Sea. Rescuers found the body of a 15-year-old boy who drowned in Tbilisi Sea yesterday. 1 year after the flood, the road to village Akhaldaba still faces the danger of landslide.
Good evening. You are watching GIPA Times with Nino Abdaladze, Nanuka Bregadze.
Good evening. 20-year-old woman was killed yesterday in Fonicala. Her 26-year-old husband is detained. The woman was transferred to the hospital but could not survive. See detail in Maradia Tsavas and Jamila Ibrahimova's report.
The husband stabbed his ex-wife, who was 20 years old. The incident took place late night in Fonicala, Tbilisi. Günay Isayeva, who was killed at her home, had 2 children, aged 2 and 4. She was taken to the hospital but failed to save her.
It has been 7 years since they married. Her husband Navruz, his grandmother, father, all beat her every day. At night he came when she was sleeping with her children. He asked to talk and demanded money. When he was refused, he took a knife from his pocket and cut her throat.
Aunt complains that police is not working properly.
Police is not interested in anything. Her husband is arrested, but we want a life sentence for him.
According to Uncle, Günay and Novruz divorced just once months ago, but he never stopped disturbing her.
He beat her every day and demanded money. When she couldn't give money, he beat her again and again. And now he came and cut her throat just next to her kids. He tried to kill her brother too, but he managed to escape. Kids are at hospital now because they are afraid.
The criminalists worked at the scene throughout the night. According to preliminary information, the cause of the murder was a family conflict. According to the Ministry of Internal Affairs, the suspect has been arrested. Investigation has been launched into a premeditated murder.
Based on the data from Prosecutor Office about femicide cases in 2015, Sopovas has prepared infographic images.
The Prosecutor's Office of Georgia presented the report and criminological research about domestic violence. It appeared that from 80 women killed in 2015, 8 were killed on the grounds of domestic violence. They were murdered by a knife, gun, with other kinds of weapons. They became victims of physical violence. In most cases, they were killed by their husbands or ex-husbands. The prosecutor's office research also showed that there were 680 domestic crime cases in 2015 in Georgia. Motives of more than a half of them, amounting 307, were conflict-based. 128 were caused by household conflict, 19 by revenge, 55 by jealousy, 1 by sexual orientation, 5 by psychological problems of victims, 1 by religious misunderstanding.
We return in the studio with the guest. Caroline Sutcliffe is the director of Chaikhana, the project that reports from South Caucasus about different issues connected to gender, minorities, social, and so on. Caroline, thank you very much for coming to our studio. And first of all, I want to ask you, you report about gender, and actually 1 year ago, one of your main themes was gender. So could you tell us, is it really a problem in Georgia?
Yes, absolutely. In Georgia and the whole South Caucasus, you can see femicide is ubiquitous, sex-selective abortion. We did a data visualization specifically on the case of 150,000 girls who were not born because of sex-selective abortion in the last 30 years. Gender-based violence, domestic violence, it's really quite an issue. So.
Could you say how important it is to report about the issue in terms of gender equality?
In terms of gender equality and reporting about the issue, if you look at the situation of media pluralism in the South Caucasus, it's quite marginalized, and the media will never be fully representative if equal opportunities for women to be told, and especially human stories of vulnerable women and women from rural parts, and their stories are told. So.
Actually, a femicide case happened yesterday, which we already told in news. A 20-year-old girl was killed. Do you follow such kind of cases? And do you do documentaries, human stories?
Yes, so we're focusing on alternative storytelling. So we'll do something that is a short documentary of her human story. We don't do news-based reports. It's much more important for us to tell how she was, her family and different situations, and sort of put that in a multimedia format as a whole.
In general, what kind of tendency is in Georgia? Are women stereotyped in media or less? How do you think?
Good question. I think all across the media, across the whole world, women will always be objectified, and the situations will be certainly sensationalized. And so it's, to me, coming to Georgia, at the same time, I do see that there is some progress being made, but a lot needs to happen as well.
And do you think it's connected somehow to the fact that women occupy less like managerial and top positions, and more men occupy this kind of positions?
Sure, absolutely. And so at Chayhana, we're trying to flip that representation where if you look at the few media outlets that are out there, they usually, the director is a male or the whole management is male, and therefore who sets the news and determines that will always be a bit biased. So we're trying to have female management and work with a lot of young female journalists, but also open it up to have male journalists. So to just flip that.
Thank you very much. This was Caroline, and now we move on to the news of the day.
Georgian students and the International Lawyer House protest in front of the Ministry of Education and Science. Students who started university abroad have problems in continuing studies here. International Lawyer House does not agree with the changes in the law. Mariam Abesadze and Javid Mehdiev have explored the issue.
Today is the third day of the manifestation at the Ministry of Education and Science of Georgia. It is organized by students and non-governmental organization Lawyers International House. The protest regards the amendment of the law signed by the former minister Tamar Sanikidze. Students enrolled in the foreign universities who get the distant education have the right to continue studying in Georgian accredited universities, but this right is deprived from 17 May 2016.
It was one of the offenses of former Minister Sanikidze. They did not give the opportunity to 4,000 students who took the education abroad to go studying at Georgian universities. What's most important, they are not going to study free and they simply lose the money. And at the same time, students who got the education abroad before this regulation do not have the right to continue study as well.
David Peradze, one of the organizers of the manifestation, says that students are going to start hunger strike if their demand will not be satisfied. 9-year-old George Guarezhelia, who has studied for 1 year in Armenia, complains that new regulation should not apply to him because he was enrolled before this change in the rule.
We have studied in Yerevan on the distant faculty for 1 year, and from the second course we should start studying in Georgia. But according to new regulation, the distant education prohibited it in our case. This regulation started 1 month earlier before our return. We are interested in why this rule concerns us when it should concern to the students of the next year. Our main demand from Jejelava is to being enrolled in the universities.
The protesters came inside of the building and asked to meet with Minister Alexander Jejelava, but he's out of the country.
My son has studied for 1 year abroad in the accredited university. He have collected proper credits and now we want to move in Georgian accredited university. We have recognition and we are waiting the signature of the minister in order to allow my son to study in our country.
The protesters are going to come here every day till they are not get the.
Rescuers have found the body of a 15-year-old boy who drowned in Tbilisi Sea yesterday. The boy was with his friend there who did not manage to save him. See in Zura Mamagulashvili's report.
After searching for 2 days, the lifeguards found the body of 15-year-old boy in Tbilisi Sea. As his friends say, he swam into deep water and couldn't reach the coast. His friends tried to save him, but there was no success. As the head of emergency situations chief David Gelashvili says, the searching process started yesterday and lasted until late night. Yesterday at 16:10 p.m. the emergency agency had received a call about a lost teenager in the sea. We immediately started searching process but couldn't find anything. Today at 6 a.m. we renewed searching process and for now the body is found.
Britain has a new Prime Minister. Theresa May is preparing to take over from James Cameron, who will hand its resignation to the Queen. Theresa May is the second woman Prime Minister to the UK. As the former BBC journalist Andrew North says, he hopes that Theresa will promote more women in politics.
Today, Theresa May is preparing to take over from Mr. Cameron, who will hand in his resignation to the Queen. The new and second woman Prime Minister of the UK is going to be Theresa May from Conservative Party. She has emerged from the latest political chaos of Britain. May did not back Brexit, but now she is not willing to retreat. Freelance journalist Andrew North says that it's still not known what kind of approach she is going to take, but people hope that she will be unifier.
One thing I think people will be particularly looking at how she performs as a Prime Minister is what she does to promote women, because she's of course the second British Prime Minister who's a woman, and for a long time people have been saying, you know, there is not enough women in positions of power, and particularly in government. So I think there's a lot of hope that she's going to promote more women, and not just to kind of mid-level jobs, but to the most important ministerial jobs.
See in Nanuk Abregadze's report.
There are nearly 80 day centers in Georgia which are serving adults and children with mental and psychical disorder. 2,000 beneficiaries in total are using their service. Dato Neparidze is one of 55 members of Day Home of Social Therapy, which serves people with disabilities since 1919. But because of donor organizations who funded them left Georgia, they are facing financial problems and danger of closure.
I was at home from the beginning, and then I came here. I have learned many things. Making drawing book, notebooks, books. From this what I'm currently doing will come out the candlestick. On weekends I'm at home, then I'm returning. I have a lot of friends here, and being here I entertain more than home. I like my work. I am doing the design of the bottle. I have very good friends.
1st of July they had exhibition fair of handmade products created by beneficiaries. It has two important effects: therapeutic and financial. Exhibition income will be used for functioning of Day Home.
It's a handmade notebook made by me. We are buying materials and then we are making products by our hands.
Government gives 11 lari voucher for each person per day, but according to the manager of the Day Home, it is not enough for implementation of program of day centers given by state.
These costs are only enough for food, transportation and utilities payments. Currently we have 50 beneficiaries, of which only 40 have a voucher assistance. Up to 40 people throughout the country stands in a queue and no one knows when it's their turn. This quality of service delivery to 11 lari vouchers without donor organizations' assistance is absolutely excluded.
According to Shorena Mosashvili, who works as an artist therapist in the Day Home of Social Therapy more than 20 years, change of environment will have a negative effect on beneficiaries. She says some of them think that they are going to this daycare center for different reasons: friends, work, entertainment.
Maybe they will have comfort and their job in other daycare centers, but it would not be acceptable service for them. Other centers are working good as well. But imagine when you are a member of one family and one of them left to live in other region, village. Can you imagine how the psyche of these people is collapsing, especially like people we have in our center?
According to the head of Social Welfare Department of Ministry of Labor, Health and Social Affairs, Amiran Dateshidze, the goal of the state is not to support daycare centers, but beneficiaries to get service they need. As he says, fund centers got were minimal to implement the service state asked them. That's why they made change in regulation which launched from 1st of July.
Instead of daily financing, which was 11 lari, monthly amount of financing become 230 lari. By the beneficiaries of missed days will be considered valid if upper limit of missed days are only 11 days in a month. As Gibi Chikobaba, the founder of another daycare center named IC, says, it was supposed to be this way before because, for example, for a driver who takes fixed salary, it has no any meaning how many beneficiaries give the lift. According to him, they have lack of 5,000–6,000 lari every month, and this change in regulation does not give big difference. Gibi's center would not be able to function if his private contacts does not exist.
If you can manage and make all services in 2 or 3 rooms, teachers will be very enthusiastic. Day center can exist, but we need more than 3,000 gel for gas tax in winter. Also, you should pay waters and other utility payments. Surprisingly, despite we are non-profit organization like NGOs, we are taxed like factory, profit enterprise.
According to managers, current funding cannot ensure high standard of service, while the need for this service is only rising, since people coming to day center have not a big choice where to spend the day in a meaningful way among friends and teachers.
The road to the village Akhaldaba still faces the danger of landslide. It was damaged during the flood 1 year ago on June 13. The road is not fully reconstructed yet, as geologists says it's not safe to move on this road. Let's see the report of Tatuli Omiadze.
The landslide and constant rains that caused massive flood a year ago started right here. The village Akhaldaba is located under these mountains. Different parts of the road to Akhaldaba were damaged. The landslide has struck down to the entrance of Tbilisi. Head of Geology Department at National Environmental Agency Merab Gapandashvili says danger of landslide still exists.
Stones which couldn't find a way in the valley of River Vere are still in the place and are dangerous. But the road will be fully recovered when the bulk of the remaining rocks are cleaned up. This is not sustainable slope, and for reconstruction of the road different possibilities are considered.
Specialists are quite clear now what was the reason of disaster.
The disaster that happened at the Vere Valley is considered as unpredicted. The large mass of rocks came down and this was cause of the flooding. The flood destroyed 3 roads, one of them being the road of Akhaldaba.
Road to the village partly restored. Tbilisi City Hall is working on reconstructions. Head of Municipal Improvement Agency Givi Kublashvili is talking with us.
The road from Tzneti to Akhaldaba is partly rebuilt. It is possible to travel here. The Ministry of Infrastructure is working for the complete rehabilitation.
Not only damaged road was a problem of the village. David Okruashvili is a resident of Akhaldaba, whose house was fully destroyed.
The flow of water was so big that it hit the roof and the house lost its shape. At the time my wife was in the house looking out of the balcony. She saw how water took our car. When the water started to come from the roof, she was afraid. She wanted to get inside but couldn't open the door. Water was already covering her feet when she started screaming. When the neighbor came out to help her, the house was already destroyed and water was taking it. My wife fell between the ruins. She was drowning when she got stuck in the fence. The neighbor managed to save her.
This is a river which led to such a disaster.
An ex-boxer from Azerbaijan minority does not want to continue competing on behalf of Georgia. Gulnar Salimova has explored the problems of Azerbaijani sport community in Georgia.
Tarkan Ismailov is ex-boxer. About 10 years ago he left the sport, but nevertheless he is still struggling with this decision.
Ben onu istəyərəm ki, elə bir şey ola mən hazırlaşam.
I would like to continue boxing but compete on behalf of Azerbaijan. Unfortunately, I don't expect anything from this country. Here state doesn't support its sportsmen financially.
He had 57 games and for 3 times became absolute champion in Georgia. But nevertheless, he has discouraged by several cases, and that is why he left his professional career.
In 2004, when was the competition on collecting of national team for World Championship, according to all the points and rules of boxing, I took the first place. But because one of the key members of jury wrote the high score to Georgian guy, he got the first place. I was taking him to knockout. Jury was stopping the game. It repeated for several times. At the end, they gave him high score than it should be.
Serhan's coach says that such cases happen very often and almost in every country.
Eğer beraber bir yerde aynı seviyede görüşürlerse de
Sometimes it happens. For example, there is a situation when in the boxing ring score of competitors is the same. In this situation, the local sportsman will win. Everyone tries to help their own sportsman. It happens everywhere.
çalışkanlar idmancısına utmağı verir hemşehriler.
According to Chancellor of the State Minister of Georgia Reconciliation and Civic Equality, Zaur Dargali, there is a state program which is related to ethnic groups integration into Georgian society issues.
Of course, I agree that there are some individual cases which happened in situations like this, but it does not mean that the opinion or attitude of those certain people expresses the attitude of the state.
Now Serhan is greatly encouraged with his son's future.
I want them to become as a professional boxer. I've already talked to my friend, but he said that they are little yet.
That was all for today. Thanks for your attention.
Watch GIPA Time tomorrow at 6 p.m.